Hello YouTube. Um, I have decided to make some YouTube videos describing and reviewing the Hannibal Lecter series, the books. So it's a book review. Yay! Um, so when I was a little kid growing up, I didn't go to preschool. Does this have to do with Hannibal Lecter? Give me a moment. When I was a little kid, I didn't go to preschool. I spent most of my childhood catching bugs in my front yard and watching National Geographic reading the National Geographic and watching Animal Planet Discovery Channel on TV. So I was a nature nerd. But something that didn't cross over as heavily was I was also a comic book nerd. When I was a little kid, my grandfather owned a gas station and a supermarket, and my father worked at the supermarket, and my mom would go to visit him, so I would go with her, and I would have lunch at my grandfather's store, and I would have fried chicken and potato salad and coleslaw and chocolate milk and all that healthy stuff. While I was waiting for my mom to spend time with my dad, and I was, spending time with my grandfather or by myself, just eating lunch and, reading comic books, I would often look at the video section. Remember back in the day with Blockbuster and, where you could rent VHS tapes and rewind them, but no one rewinded them because they were all dick holes? That's kind of, what also was in my grandfather's store. So there would be the deli right here, and I would go around the corner and I would pick up some comic books to read. Spider-Man, Sonic the Hedgehog, Fantastic Four, Incredible Hulk, Captain America, Iron Man, Marvel, DC, all that nerdy stuff. Black Horse. That was right up my childhood. Aquaman. I know everyone doesn't really like Aquaman, but I always liked Aquaman because I wanted to be a marine biologist when I was a kid. So I would read the comic books and I would look through the movies and I would, take some home and we'd watch, the movies and Disney and all that stuff. But I would look through all the adult movies too, and back in the day they didn't have like really provocative color covers, so there wasn't like porn or anything for me to be shocked at. But some of the horror movies and stuff, the imagery was quite beautiful, and the thing that I guess I hate about modern day horrors is that it's mostly gore and a little bit of thriller and suspense. I mean, there's the whole kind of pop out and scare you, but there's not that whole kind of psychological depth that a lot of the 80s and 90s and even some late 70s and early 70s stuff gives you. So I guess for that reason, I never really was a big horror movie fan. The whole kind of gore and the blah aspect and the blood and the aliens and the blah, that's cool and I like it, but in small doses. What I like the best is kind of like psychological serial killers, the kind of psychology behind it all, not necessarily the killing themselves, but the psychology behind it all. And so I remember one cover particularly catching my eye as a kid, and the image kind of stayed latent in the back of my head. A latent images, by the way, is when you stare at like a bright light for a long time and then you close your eyes and you can see those colored dots in your head. That's a latent image. So the latent image of the cover for Silence of the Lambs stayed with me for a long time. Jodie Foster, the cover was, Jodie Foster's eyes and nose, and then where the mouth was, there was the death's head moths covering it, and it said Silence of the Lambs. When I was a kid, I remember staring at the cover of that VHS tape quite a lot and thinking, that's a beautiful image, and I love bugs, particularly moths and butterflies, and so for me that was a really powerful image growing up with, and I didn't know anything about the story. I didn't know, it was a horror movie or anything like that, and I guess I just always was attracted to the beautiful cover. I can tell you more about the cover. The skull on the cover is actually one of Dali's famous pieces. It's actually a bunch of nude women stacked together in the form of a skull, and they superimplanted that on the death's head moths, or the Acherontia sticks, even though in the movie it's actually an Acherontia atropos, but that's entomology jargon and nerdy, so I won't go into that. But because of that reason, I was always attracted to the Silence of the Lambs. But I guess over the years with life and stuff, I kind of forgot about it. And when I was about 15 or 16, my brother and his friends came over to watch kind of a horror movie marathon. So they watched Seven and the Hannibal Lecter series and The Grudge and White Noise and those Asian ghost movies and stuff like that. And I guess at the time I was kind of in the throes of my teenage angst and stuff, and I guess I didn't just want to watch a bunch of horror movies that night. So I stayed in my room and I played video games like a cool person. Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Dynasty Warriors, all that cool stuff. And because of that, I never actually got to see the movie, or know about the story, or even connect the cover with the moth, the Death's Head moth, and Silence of the Lambs with that. I never really thought about it. And then about, I guess, a month ago, in kind of the throes of my, I guess, manic depression or just whatever this is, I kind of became re-obsessed with entomology, and it rekindled my love for biology. And so I started to read up about the mythology of insects and stuff, and I started to reconnect with moths and butterflies, as you will have seen in my moth videos. And because of that, I read up on popular culture and myths and, the stories about death's head moths and other moths and stuff. And it mentioned about Buffalo Bill planting the black witch moth in the books in the throats of some of his victims. And I thought, Buffalo Bill, where do I know that from? And then I clicked on it, and before reading anything, because I didn't want to spoil anything from my episode, Buffalo Bill was a serial killer in Silence of the Lambs. And then it showed, the cover of Silence of the Lambs. And because of that, I said, whoa, this is a serial killer. I had no idea what it was about, but a serial killer using moths. So that was right up my alleyway, because I've always loved serial killers and the psychology behind them. Using moths and Silence of the Lamb, it was something that, really attracted me as a kid. And it felt like all the pieces were coming together. And so I decided to get Silence of the Lambs out from the library to read over kind of semester breaks. And so my friend Maria had her ebook of Silence of the Lambs on her computer, so we decided to read it together as, book buddies. And so because of that, we read Silence of the Lambs together. And so this next video, I'm going to stop this now. So this is kind of just a short thing of how I came into the Hannibal Lecter series, but I'm gonna, I guess, break down each book. And I started with Silence of the Lambs, and then read Hannibal, and then read Red Dragon, which is kind of a roundabout way to read them, seeing as Red Dragon came first, and Silence of the Lambs second, and Hannibal third. But I shall dissect them and kind of book review them, and talk to you about what aspects of the books made them so great, and I'll talk about the movies and stuff as well. So, yep, that's what I'm gonna do. Hi. Book review time! Yay!